Welcome to Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis. I am Tim O'Malley with John Brice of FootballScoop and Irish Illustrated as well. And today we actually had a meeting with a few tight ends, but also coordinators, Chris Ash and Mike Denbrock. I spent a lot of my time with Eli Raridan. I believe you were with Kevin Bauman. So before we get to the coordinators, Kevin, I'm sure, back a full year now. I was in the same situation with Eli Raridan, back a full year. What were some interesting things for Bauman? Because he has a new opportunity I don't think he really had last year with the depth chart.
No, it was very revealing to visit with Kevin Bauman and an incredibly enjoyable visit. And I asked him point blank, like, Kevin, fill in the blank. You feel the healthiest now as you felt since when? Because the guy's had among the worst injury luck of anybody we've seen in this program in several years. And he said, honestly, I feel better now than before I tore my ACL the first time, which I thought was really enlightening. He said that when the season ended, he'd never envisioned having an opportunity for a 6th year at Notre Dame. He said, honestly, I was just planning on transferring out. I thought my time here was done. And he said, and then when I learned it was an opportunity, why on earth would I not want to spend my 6th year at the greatest university on the earth? And that's his quote, a really commanding quote from Kevin Bauman, calling Notre Dame the greatest university on the earth. He said he feels great. He said that he did have to have some self-reflection and, think about the pain and damage he's already inflicted on his body. How much more can the body absorb? But he felt really comfortable with that. He thinks he's at a better playing weight than he's been at in a really long time. He thinks he's a little lighter, but also stronger. He feels quicker. He says he's a better route runner now. Just a lot of positives coming from the conversation with Kevin Bauman.
Well, right before he tore his ACL the first time was 2022, and he was off to a really good start that season. Notre Dame just happened to lose the 2 games in which he played very well as Michael Mayer's understudy at tight end. He had a good start. The conversation with Eli Raridan, it centered around a couple things. Mitchell Evans basically calling him a freak, and you're going to see that this year. He mentioned that at Pro Day yesterday. Raridan had not heard that, so he was pleased. I asked Raridan, though, when did you finally feel like you were back? I know it wasn't early in the season, and he admitted it. He said it was right around Stanford, and he made the same joke Mike Denbrock said. He said it wasn't mid-season because we play a lot more games nowadays, but it was right around Stanford. He decided, it's time to go, man. I just need to play this game the way I know I can. And I asked him, he said that the offense last year, the difficulty was it was a much more difficult offense pre-snap to understand what you're doing. And I said, is that manifest in the run game? And he said, absolutely. When you're thinking, what do I have to do in the run game? Where is my combo block? What if this guy does that? You hesitate. And when you hesitate as a run blocker, it doesn't work out well, which is why Flanagan, Evans, and Eli Raridan improved in the running game last year as the season went on. You remember if you're looking back at the film, you're looking at some things like, why are they missing these? He said, you guys, and he meant us, have no idea how many things are going on pre-snap in the run game. So I found that interesting, and he said he is obviously the healthiest he has been. He is now completely removed, and he got 3 weeks off. He took 3 full weeks off of football. He said it's the first time that really happens for anybody. They were mandated to take that off. Didn't get to go home, but 3 weeks off after the 16-game season. You spent some time with Mike Denbrock as well. I think we'll get to the wide receivers in a second, but what are kind of your takeaways from Mike today?
Yeah, real quickly, just touching up a couple more things on Eli Raridan and Kevin Bauman that I found fascinating. Number one is Mike Denbrock saying he believes Eli Raridan has the capacity to be as good as any tight end ever around this place. Those are Denbrock's words, and obviously this is tight end you for a reason. Kevin Bauman.
He coached Tyler Eifert, so that's...
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Bauman echoing very similar sentiments that he's seen just Eli completely take another step, called him a freak as well, or spoke about his athleticism and how dynamic he is. And so a lot of understandable and visible hype starting to percolate around Eli Raridan. Pardon me, one more thing from Kevin Bauman. I think it was Eric Hansen who noted to him, like, hey, do you ever think about the fact you came in the same class as Michael Mayer, and he's getting ready for his 3rd NFL season, and you're getting ready for your 6th year of college? And he said, yes, trust me, Mike's still one of my best friends, and he gives me crap about it all the time, although he didn't say crap, so...
Well, we don't have to edit that one even at all. There was briefly with Chris Ash. We actually both spent more time with Denbrock, but Chris Ash mentioned, and Tom the intern told us this downstairs. He said that his biggest impression of this place is he can feed the defensive players plenty of information because they're intelligent and they can retain it. He said he felt like he hit the coaching lottery coming to Notre Dame, and he's been to Ohio State and won a national title there. So it kind of echoes. That's the one thing he said that really echoes what Al Golden said. He's like, look, I love this place. I could tell these guys things. They take it to heart, and he always wants to recruit players like that Ash has walked into that situation.
Yeah, and then as he compounded or expounded on those comments, I thought it very interesting from Ash that he made sure to denote the benefit of that is that they go over something in the meeting room, they walk through it, and then they go and begin to execute it on the practice field and can implement it into their game plan and into their defensive system. So noteworthy in that regard. He's not just calling these guys smart players. He's telling us exactly how that football intelligence transfers over to the football field itself. So very, very interesting and enlightening there. Credit Tim Priester on this one. He asked Ash if he'd ever had the opportunity to be a defensive coordinator before without being specifically in charge of a position.
Yeah.
He has not. So this is his first time getting to be a true defensive CEO, and obviously he's been a defensive coordinator of some renown in the past, so this should only enhance his big picture ability as he implements his Notre Dame defense.
Before we get to one more tidbit from Priester, that actually stands to reason. Remember, I was wondering if Marty Biaggi would move because you brought Chris Ash, a defensive backfield expert, in. Biaggi was working with Ash and Mickens in a fumble recovery scoop and score drill yesterday, so Biaggi probably is staying there, allowing Ash to move around a little bit more.
Yeah, great point by you, because I've tried to pay specific attention to that, and I noticed on Wednesday when we were out on the practice field briefly, and I was primarily watching the offensive line, but on the far end of that outdoor practice field, the safeties were working, and Marty Biaggi was getting some ball security drills and interception drills going with the safeties, so he still is chipping in and helping out there on the defensive back end.
Quickly wrapping up the defense, Priester asked if leaders were emerging, because when you lose Kaiser and Watts, not to mention Cross and Mills, you're going to need something in the spring. And one name mentioned was Drake Bowen.
The only
name mentioned was Drake Bowen. So I don't think that's a huge surprise either that Drake Bowen are to take that mantle. The guy's growth last year from the Northern Illinois game, where you could look at him make the wrong decision in his mind on a play, to what he did at the end of that year, I think Bowen's probably one of the rising young stars people don't talk about in college football.
Well, and he's one of the guys that I specifically did get to speak to in the locker room after the college football playoff title loss in Atlanta and ask him about taking that leadership mantle. And he said then, all the way back on January 20th, he said, I'm ready for it. We have things we know we have to improve. We flush this, we remember how we got here, and we start improving immediately. And so I think that Drake Bowen, quite honestly, flipped the switch to that mindset probably during the playoff run, but he recognized after that game in Atlanta that it was his time to step up and emerge as one of the leaders on the defensive side of the ball. And then also one more thing from Tim Priester, I think, may have been Jack Sobel asking about the wider splits for the defensive end, kind of at that 7 spot, and Ash explaining, like, look, we like that because we feel like we've got some freaks that can get matched up against the other team's tight end, and that's a good matchup for us.
This is actually the final note on the defense this time, but I had to throw it in that and Ash kind of mentioned, like, this is not a surprise, but it's a nickel defense. He said you don't need to call it a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5 or whatever. Everybody calls it something different. Linebacker terminology is different, but it's a nickel defense. Max Bullough said the same thing last year. That's modern football. You have to play a nickel defense now, so you will not see. There'll be structural changes, but you won't see that change if you're a Notre Dame fan going into this season.
And along those lines, Ash did briefly compliment Devontae Smith and what he's got there and what he's seen out of him. So, again, just more very encouraging, positive reviews on the Cincinnati native and Alabama transfer.
And his, I guess, positivity is always a Mike Denbrock trait when he talks to us, but he did point out last year, he said, look, we were never fully confident in the passing game last year. It wasn't a Riley Leonard thing. It was a receivers thing, more than Riley Leonard, I'm sure, contributed to this, but it was a receiver issue. And he mentioned that, look, we dropped way too many passes. This is a study you and I did before the playoffs. They led all playoff contenders in drop passes. I just stopped after the top 25 teams because I'm sure maybe somebody outside that level of the sport was dropping balls. They can't do that again. He said, there's 100 out of 100 plays you have to make. We have to be 100 out of 100. They weren't close to that last year.
Yeah, I think he called it unacceptable, the level of drops that Notre Dame had last season. And Mike is one of the most positive coaches you'll ever be around anywhere. So when he says something's unacceptable, that's about as condemning as it gets with us in the media. And he was very transparent about that and very open about the fact that the receivers' drops last year were a huge contributing factor in Notre Dame never really being confident or comfortable in its throw game over the course of that playoff run. I just found that very interesting. You and I did study it, and the percentage of passes dropped, Notre Dame was far and away number one of the CFP teams, and they were really close to having the most drops, even though they had 250 or so fewer pass attempts than an Oregon or an Ohio State going into the playoffs. So Mike saying that he believes they're running better routes and that will help them. And so Drew Mintock asked, how does running better routes help them? And he said, well, I don't know that it definitely helps them. And he laughed. He said, but I hope it helps them. And it goes back to timing, rhythm, being where you're supposed to be so that you can make the catch. And then the thing he said that he indicated, he figured we had probably heard him say it on the practice field, and I had not, but he tells the guys, catch the ball with your eyes. And that's just a form of concentration and seeing it with your eyes and seeing it all the way into your body with your eyes.
Yeah, concentration drops, I think, probably drive him more crazy than anything possible. He mentioned, I'm kind of sticking with the theme that it's hard for a bunch of young receivers in the spring to go through 3 quarterbacks. He kind of pushed back on that by simply saying the receivers shouldn't care who their quarterbacks are. Maybe the quarterbacks can care who the receivers are, but the ball's going to be there if you run the right depth, if you see spacing the way you're supposed to do it. And I immediately thought about young players and why someone will say, why is this guy not like Cam Williams, his speed is there. Why is he not in the mix? Why is someone else not in the mix? It's because there's so many more nuances than anyone thinks about as in the passing game nowadays, the modern game. It is not just that guy's fast, that guy's strong, that guy can catch the ball one-on-one.
And let's not necessarily happy news, a guy that we had expected to be a breakout star over the course of spring and that a lot of us are still obviously really high on for the 25 season is Micah Gilbert, and we noted that he was not on the practice field on Wednesday. Don't believe he practiced again today. Had it indicated to me that he probably suffered a couple of broken fingers in his right hand, and was indicated to me he had a cast on his right arm today at practice while a non-participant in practice. So broken fingers, hardly the worst thing in the world.
Right,
get it healed up pretty quickly, but that's going to truncate his spring.
Better in the spring than, say, maybe October 5th to break 2 fingers because, he can be back from that. Finally, to wrap up with Denbrock, I selfishly asked him about Steve Angeli because I am finishing the Irish Illustrated series today, arguing for Steve Angeli in part of our three-part debate that Steve Angeli to be named starting quarterback. And Denbrock, of course, laughed and said, I know you guys need some for your podcast and radio shows. But he mentioned that, yes, Steve, at this point, I thought Angeli, when I interviewed him, carried himself like the no-doubt starter in his mind. Not that he said it. He just carries himself that way. Gino Gaduli said, yeah, he should. He's been here that long. We mentioned experience. Mike Denbrock said it's not all about experience. But this is the first time, he admitted, Steve Angeli can go in and think, I am going to win this job.
Right.
Because he had Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard. That was just the reality of the situation. It makes for a fascinating spring because I'm sure C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchey also believe that. They did not bring in Riley Leonard. They are going against a guy they can compete with.
Yeah, Mike making it clear that those 3 guys, and Angeli specifically, has carried himself over the first week and a half or the first third of spring camp as a guy who expects to win the starting job. I even think that might have been Mike's exact phraseology there, was that he is carrying himself as a guy who expects it to be his and is saying, this is mine, I'm here to take it, you'll have to take it from me. So very interesting there. I did get a chance to ask him about Blake Hebert and kind of how they manage him when it is a true 3-man competition. How do they ensure he gets some work as a mid-year enrollee? Found it very interesting. He told me that near the end of practices, they do a lot of good-on-good 7-on-7. He called it basic football. And he said that's when Blake is getting his most extensive work. They like his arm strength. They like his physical traits. And they said that he's starting to see the progress of the work he's getting in that end of practice 7-on-7 and running with some of the good offense, running the 7-on-7.
We'll be back on campus tomorrow for defensive early enrollees, which will include, I assume, Devontae Smith and possibly any mid-year enrollee, but exactly. I think it's focused mostly on the freshmen. So that will be our interviews tomorrow. And then today, actually, I'll have a Irish Illustrated Insider podcast with a special one with Drew Mintock, because Drew is not only at the Combine, but also at Pro Day. So we're going to talk about what his impressions for both of those. Good. Until then, for John Brice of Football Scoop, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thank you for watching Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis.